All right, welcome to another deep dive. You know how this works, right? You send us the sources, we dive right in.
And today, we're talking about a pretty wild idea.
Yeah, we're going to explore a potential link between Al-Ghazali, that's an 11th century Islamic scholar, and René Descartes, the 17th century French philosopher.
Based on what you sent us, it seems like there might be this connection.
A real shake-up to the history of philosophy, right?
Exactly. The text argues that Al-Ghazali's work might have actually, significantly influenced Descartes, especially his whole approach to doubt.
Okay, so Al-Ghazali first. This text goes deep into his intellectual journey in uh, The Deliverer from Error.
Right.
He was on this quest for certain knowledge,
Yeah.
knowledge that is absolutely beyond any doubt.
Right, and that pursuit led him to question everything, even his senses.
Like, think about it. A shadow can seem still and then suddenly move. Stars look tiny, but they're actually gigantic.
And for Al-Ghazali, it wasn't just, a passing thought. He really scrutinized everything, even rational knowledge, the things that seem absolutely undeniable.
I can't imagine questioning, like, basic logic.
Well, that's what he did. He went through this phase of intense skepticism that lasted 2 months, almost like sophistry, which was this ancient Greek thing, persuasive arguments, but not always logically sound.
So he was in a real intellectual crisis.
Absolutely.
So how did he find his way out?
Well, the text says he found clarity through, and I'm quoting here, a light cast by God in the breast, which brought him to accept those essential, necessary, rational truths.
Interesting. So a really personal, almost spiritual resolution to his doubt, right?
Yeah. And now, if we shift to Descartes, the text points out some pretty striking parallels.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the text says Descartes was also, unsatisfied with the traditional ways of learning, wanted to seek truth on his own terms. And get this, he questioned his senses too, like how towers look round from far away, but up close, they're square. Or huge statues looking small from a distance. Does that sound familiar?
Very much so. And in fact, the source explicitly makes the connection, draws a parallel between Al-Ghazali's methodical doubt and Descartes' methodological doubt.
Okay, so now things get even more interesting.
Yeah.
Because this text doesn't just stop at the parallels. It actually suggests that Descartes basically took Al-Ghazali's method and, presented it in Latin. There's even mention of this Tunisian researcher who supposedly found a Latin translation of The Deliverer from Error in Descartes' personal library, and it even had a handwritten note that said, "This should be added to our method."
Now, the French National Library, they've disputed the existence of this particular translation and a separate Descartes library. But the source points out that, Arabic manuscripts of The Deliverer from Error, they were actually available in European libraries during Descartes' time. Like, they were around even among some of his acquaintances.
So the text argues that all these parallels, in their intellectual journeys and the methods they used and the availability of Al-Ghazali's work, it's just too much to ignore.
Right, and think about this. Al-Ghazali defines certain knowledge as, and I'm quoting again, that in which the object is revealed with no remaining doubt. Doesn't that sound a lot like Descartes' concept of, clear and distinct perception?
It really does.
And then there are the thought experiments. Al-Ghazali's idea that, even if someone could turn a staff into a snake, it wouldn't actually shake true knowledge.
That's pretty wild.
Right. And that idea is mirrored in Descartes' evil demon thought experiment. So these aren't just, superficial similarities.
Definitely not. Now, in the spirit of fairness, the source does bring up some counter-arguments, right? Like, maybe comparing the teenage Descartes' frustrations with school to Al-Ghazali's deep spiritual and intellectual crisis isn't a perfect one-to-one.
Yeah.
And of course, it's entirely possible for similar philosophical ideas to develop independently.
Absolutely, and it's important to acknowledge that. But ultimately, the text makes a pretty strong argument that the evidence points to a significant influence of Al-Ghazali on Descartes' fundamental philosophical ideas, especially, his whole understanding of doubt and the nature of knowledge. And that really challenges the traditional narrative of how Western philosophy developed. It suggests this much more interconnected history of ideas than we might realize.
So for our listeners, what's the big takeaway here? I mean, it's this potentially groundbreaking idea, right? And Al-Ghazali might have played a much bigger role in shaping Western philosophy than most people think.
And this deep dive leaves you with a crucial question to ponder. How might our understanding of Western philosophy, really fundamentally change if we fully acknowledged Al-Ghazali's contributions? I think this text really encourages all of us to dig deeper into the exchange of ideas between cultures throughout history.
Great stuff. Until next time.